Dear leftists, do you have any idea what Obama did? Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and I just want to ask left-leaning Americans or Americans at large a very simple question. Aside from Obamacare and being the president who happened to sit in office while the Supreme Court deemed denying gays the right to marry as being unconstitutional, can you actually list anything that Obama really did as president? I know what you're probably thinking. But, the Republicans tried to block all of his policies because he's black. Sure, fine. And maybe they did. But personally, while I hate to admit it, I honestly don't really know very much about what Obama actually did during his administration. So now you're saying, but Prince, why are you going to make a video about Obama's policies if you admit that you don't really know much about Obama's policies? Why am I doing that? Because that is precisely my point. You see, I would rank myself as above average in terms of my political awareness in terms of people on the left, whatever that says. However, I don't really know what Obama actually did during his administration, besides deliver compassionate speeches and make me feel warm fuzzies inside because we had a pro-LGBT rights black president. I remember thinking to myself that America must be getting better because civil rights seem to be getting better, so I could focus on things outside of worrying about politics, like my personal artistic career in music, and not have to worry much about the bigger picture. Then, of course, around 2012, everybody started talking constantly about Black Lives Matter and acted like even their own friends were racist, misogynistic, and transphobic. But I figured that would go away and we'd be in Star Trek technologically driven socialism land soon enough. But even before that, the big bank bailouts after the housing market crash happened, and Occupy Wall Street was the resulting protest. But oh well, that wasn't a big deal to me because I figured it was really just George W. Bush's fault. I also didn't completely understand the Occupy protests until around the time that they were ending. But whatever, I could still ignore it because it was over. Also, these drone strike things kept on going on and nobody really talked about them, but it was easy to continue not talking about them for me because, well, I worked with veterans sometimes, and dealing with people who actually survived combat was emotionally taxing, as they'd do things like get so drunk that they'd pass out on somebody's stoop, and when their friend tried to pick him up and put him in a cab, the sleeping guy would bite him. Those are the kinds of things you can't ignore, so when they are in your face, when you are hanging out with dudes that are biting each other when they get wasted because they're traumatized from war, well, drone strikes that nobody is talking about are pretty easy to ignore. But don't forget that Obama was such a great orator. He was so good at speaking, and he even cried that one time. So, I felt safe and secure. People also complain now that Obama deported a ton of illegal immigrants, and nobody really talks about that from either side. I think because conservatives actually wanted people deported, so they didn't cheer him on because they mostly hated Obama, and because left-leaning people think that deporting immigrants is icky and gross, so they didn't want to talk about that in relation to their perfect black president. Regardless, when I think about my life during the Obama presidency, especially the second term, I think about skyrocketing rent prices in every urban center where LGBT people tend to live and how almost nobody is actually moving into all of those condos they built after they muscled out renters and demolished perfectly fine buildings. Prices are dropping for these condos, so clearly this was a foolish investment for whoever is responsible. That all happened on Obama's watch. But I can't say I know how exactly because I wasn't paying close enough attention. None of us were. Nor do I know why exactly it is that so many people I know got in student loan debt that there is no sign of them getting out of, and all they seem to have learned at university is that they no longer trust their own opinions about anything because supposedly they are so privileged, and therefore they should be listening to black lesbians in wheelchairs or something. who should be leading the fight to wherever we're all going together. I don't even know anymore. I also know that there have been several terrorist attacks of obvious Islamic origin over the past year, though many people try to deny they had anything to do with Islam. Even if the attacker said directly that it did, some of these crimes are barely even reported on. I also know that we are still at war with Afghanistan. Regardless, does all of this sound like the greatest president of our lifetimes to you? I don't really know personally. Do you? That's my point here. I didn't pay careful attention to what he actually did while he was in office because I wanted to like him. So now that Obama is about to be out of office, especially if you always supported him like I did, perhaps now is the time to begin actually examining what happened during his presidency. And once you know that, maybe you will have a better perception of what's actually happening during the Trump presidency, because we actually should be aware where we're at before we criticize the next president. You know? Drop me a comment and stay tuned.